folks, and welcome to another Sunday morning Samoflange. I'm Matt, and as you see at the top 5 survivors, I was going to do this. I had this idea. This is one of my old notes, and I finally got it out of the way. I'm finally getting it out of the way, and for a good reason too. I am currently watching, of course, this current season's U.S. Survivor. I just finished this season of Australian Survivor. I watch Survivors from all around the world. And so I thought maybe I should rank them. Now, originally, this wasn't the idea for the podcast. The idea for the podcast came across back in late 2019, early 2020. I was watching Survivor with 2 other friends of mine. Now, these other friends, we came from different walks of life. Taylor, they're both their names were Taylor, now that I think about it. Boy and a girl. One was Mr. Monroe. It's a gay beauty pageant, and so very different from me. But he loved Survivor. I love Survivor, and we just decided to watch it. The other Taylor was a girl. She used to date my brother a long time ago. She'd gone away, come back, and we had done a show together maybe a few years earlier. And we were all, I didn't know she was a Survivor fan. In fact, I didn't really know much. I knew she was back in town. I maybe said hello to her. Like I said, we did that show. I talked to her, but, we never hung out. So I never really knew that she was a Survivor fan until my other buddy, Taylor, told me she was. And I was like, yeah, bring her over. So I had a Survivor little watch group. It was very fun. In fact, I would love to get them back. And the other Taylor was a little weird. She liked to be naked and backstage a lot in shows. Not the show that I did. Well, no, she was naked supposedly in the girls' dressing room, which I think that's fine. But supposedly she was a little too happy with her nakedness. I don't know. I heard later on that usually if you have to have a quick change off stage, for guys, you just quick change, man. You're in your boxers, skivvies, whatever. But for the ladies, they made a little curtain, so the ladies could undress. But she didn't need the curtain. That's what I was told. And that's fine because there are other people I heard, ladies who did not use the curtain. One was a very old lady. It's my favorite story in the world. In fact, my buddy hates when I tell the story, so I'm going to leave his name out of it. But he turned the corner because we kind of get ready for our cue. She came off stage, this old lady, and just stripped down. I mean, buck naked. And was trying to find her dress, then looked over at him and just kind of stared at him. Just not offended, not embarrassed, just kind of stared at him like, well, here I am. And he was just like, she didn't even bother covering up. He was so mad because it's an old lady. And I cackled so hard. I told that story, and I know it got him so mad, but I still think it's the funniest story I've ever heard. But he definitely regrets telling me that story. But the other Taylor was the same way. Anyway, different from people, different walks of life, all watching Survivor. Unfortunately, of course, this is when the pandemic came down. I was all for watching it together. We were going to do a podcast afterwards. It was season 40, I think, of Survivor. Winners. All winners, and we were going to do a podcast on it. And so I wrote down Survivor, and then I wrote down top 5 survivors. What I meant was top 5, U.S. Survivor shows. But now when I look at the note, I'm like, no, I want to do something different. I want to do top 5 survivors from around the world because I've watched a ton of them. And you can watch most of these on YouTube now or other little streaming areas. There's ways to get them, to get the other ones, if you know what I mean. The UK, the South African, Australian, New Zealand, all these. But I thought, why don't I rank them all with the U.S. and tell you, in my opinion, which ones are the best ones ever. So, Survivor, if you don't know, is the only show I really watch live anymore. I mean, I only watch the day it comes out. I think my wife and I were watching Young Sheldon. She dropped out like a season and a half ago. I was going to drop out, but I heard that this season was the last season. So I'm hanging on to the end. Not that it's terrible. It's just ho-hum. And I know they're spinning off that show, and I'm just not going to watch it. I'm just done. Like Walking Dead, we're done. Every show that we watched on live TV, which was Young Sheldon back in the day, now we don't have cable anymore. We haven't for the past couple of years. And I'm still streaming those shows we used to watch on cable. All of them are done except for Young Sheldon and, of course, Survivor. So I'll always watch Survivor. But anyway, this is my favorite show. So I'm going to give you my top 5 around the world survivors. If you like Survivor, if you stop watching, and you're like, Matt, or the other one's very good. I'll tell you that too. So number 5 in all of these is probably my least favorite is Survivor UK. Survivor UK, a lot of these overseas started off the same time or soon after Survivor in the US exploded. When Survivor in the US exploded, 2000, 2001, 2002 or whatnot, all these, Australia, UK, New Zealand, South Africa, they all did their own versions. And then they stopped, and then most of them rebooted. UK just rebooted this year. Or maybe last year. Maybe last year they just rebooted. Either way, though, the first versions of the UK versions are not only sad and boring because they're old school Survivor, they're not exciting. And the host admitted that he did not get the point of the show. He was not the right person to do it. He was terrible. I think they replaced him after season 1, but even the guy in season 2 didn't know what he was doing. And it really fell flat. Like he would just call out who voted for who and then stuff their torch. And then that was it. It wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't say anything. It wasn't a big deal. And it was, the Brits were very polite to each other, and, it was very boring. There wasn't much for them to do. And the challenges were very droll, too. So a lot of it was just boring and dull. Now, they came back with a new version, and it was odd. It wasn't bad, but, again, the exciting characters weren't really there yet. The host was a little weird. They were obviously doing this to get a younger generation, and I get that. You want to get younger hip people watching Survivor. So they played modern day, what I'm guessing is UK bands. So there's a lot of music going on as they're hitting the beaches, and it's contemporary music, the stuff that probably kids will listen to right now. And the host is making jokes. He's the narrator. And he's making cheesy jokes. They're checking tree mail. No, not mail that's in a tree. That's just what we call it here on Survivor. And I'm like, oh, was that a joke? And there's a lot of cheesy little jokes and puns like that he was doing as the narrator, telling you, well, so they go home and they're all sad because someone's got, just like the song says, you gotta go. Sometimes you gotta go, or something like that. And the song starts playing. And I'm like, Again, I know they're trying to be different. And they're trying to, appeal to the people in their, country. I get that. I'm all for that. But this one just wasn't as appealing to me. Not that I don't want it to stop. I do hope it's successful. I do hope they do a season 2 because I like watching other versions of Survivor. But in my opinion, this right now is my least favorite of all of them. Now, number 4. Number 4 only had 2 seasons, and then it quit in 2000, 2001 or something, very early. But Survivor New Zealand is worth your time to watch. Now, the first season was meh. Okay, the second season is really good. And I'm going to give you the premise on this. So a little bit of spoilers, but not really. I won't tell you who won. But it was very cool because New Zealand is a small country, right? So the odds of you picking people that know each other are high. And what they did on the second season, they accidentally picked 2 people who were childhood friends. Now, they hadn't seen each other in a while, but they recognized each other immediately. They were on separate tribes, didn't say anything. So when their tribes came together, they shared information and became a power couple, and they were taking out both sets of tribes because they had all the information, not just half of it. And no one could figure out how the other team was figuring out their plans. And it was just genius until... or later on, both of them got a little paranoid of each other, and one voted the other out. Now that person made the council, and so the jury. And when final tribal came, he outed his friend at the final jury vote and everything, and it was tremendous drama and really awesome. Blew up the guy's game and everything, and everyone was shocked because no one knew that they'd known each other. I think this one even showed the compound, like it would show the jury talking about who they were going to pick and what happened to them afterwards, which you get to see on Survivor Ponderosa, their online little show. But in the regular show, you got to see them getting interviewed in the hotel, about what they did wrong, what they changed, what they plan to do at final jury and stuff, which I found interesting. Survivor New Zealand, even though it went 2 seasons, was not bad. In fact, out of all the, first seasons of Australia, the first seasons of UK, of South Africa, and of New Zealand had the best. and that version. Well, I mean, the U.S. had the best, in my opinion, but New Zealand was really good stuff back then. Sadly, they're not bringing it back, I guess. I would love to see it come back. I always daydreamed, what would it be like if I was on Survivor and then someone, that I knew from California also made it on there, and we knew each other, but we didn't say anything. Wow, what a big, great story that would be. And New Zealand got to have that story, so well worth its time. So number 3 is Survivor South Africa. South Africa, and this is where I start knowing the host here. The first 3 seasons was some boring host, and I'll be honest, I watched the first 3 seasons over last summer when I was on beach vacation, and they drug every single one, and they were a little hard to watch. Everyone's very subconscious of the camera. No one wants to be the villain, and there's not much drama, and you're kind of just bored. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to continue this, but I noticed it ended and then rebooted maybe 8 years ago or whatnot, and with season 4, Maldives or whatever. And so I looked at it, and still, people are very subconscious of the camera. They don't want to be looked at in a bad light, so they're all behaving well. One guy tries to mix the boat a little bit. He is being deceptive by not saying who he's voting for and switching his vote. But the thing is, though, that's the way you should play the game. Well, he gets called this, just cheat. He's he's a villain. And later on, when they bring back the villains and the heroes, he goes, I'm the original villain, and what I did wasn't really that bad. And he was right. He wasn't really a villain. And goodness gracious, in the 4 years later until when they brought him back in season 8, or I think it was, that dude had gotten all gray. He'd gone all gray. I had to go back and look at I said, how many seasons ago was that? And only 4 seasons, so 4 years. They do 1 season a year in South Africa, and in 4 years, that man had aged poorly. He was all black, all white hair. And he looked the same, just with I thought he dyed his hair. I was like, whoa, that guy really went over the last 4 years. But either way. So the first one, even though the characters weren't good, the twists were. There was a lot of good twists they had. They had one thing where you had the white conch shell and the black conch shell. And when you had the white conch shell, you had an extra vote, if I recall. You got to have an extra vote. But when you use that extra vote, you had to if you wanted to use the extra vote, you had to give the conch shell, the white little, it was a shell necklace, I guess. You had to give it to someone else. So, you could use it when you really needed it, but then you had to give it to someone. And when you gave it to someone at Tribal, everyone knew that you were going to use 2 votes that time. And, of course, sometimes it makes you a target. Well, then there was the black little conch shell necklace, and whoever had that, they earned it during some challenge. Whoever got number 1 got the white one. Whoever got last place got the black one. And the black one, they automatically start off the game with a vote. Whoa, that's super dangerous. So already they're in trouble. They got 1 vote against them. And the thing is, if they ever get voted out, they get to assign that black curse, shell curse, to someone else. So in essence, no one wanted to vote them out because they were afraid, oh man, what if they give me that curse and I have a negative one? Now eventually, these necklaces did disappear, so it didn't impact the very end, but they did away with them. But they lived with them for a lot of the season, and it really changed the dynamics more than a hidden immunity idol would. And I really, really like that. And they did a lot of twists here. One of the twists was in South Africa that you got to sit down. One of the rewards was to sit down with a jury member and talk to them. Your jury over food. You did a food reward with a jury member of your choice to ask, what's the jury feeling right now, and how do they need me to play the rest of the game? How can I impress them? Oh man, that is Titanic. I love that. They had one where you voted someone off the jury, like right before you voted for the jury. The people would get together, maybe 5 would be left, or when you got to the final 5 or whatnot. And instead of voting one of each other off, they all voted to vote one of the jury members off. And that was great. And I loved that. I was like, wow. And so there'd be one less jury member. And a lot of these twists were just new that you never seen before. And again, South Africa, they did have some great character. In fact, they had one of the most dominant people I've ever seen play the game. I think his name was Chris or whatnot. No one voted for him. Everyone thought he was their number 2. Everyone thought it's me and him. And even when he was exposed to have, because one guy at the bottom, when it came to 9 or whatever, he figured it out. I was like, oh my gosh, he went, you just made a number, a number 2 deal, a deal with every single one of us. Guys, you realize that, right? He's playing all of us. So everyone's going to vote me. He goes, and then he figured out the turn. He said, then it's you, then you, then you, and then you. He said, I know how the inner circle works. He went, no one wants to turn against Chris, and no one wanted to turn against him. And but the thing is, though, whenever someone got betrayed, they were so upset because he was supposed to take them all the way to the end. Yet this guy, very early, figured it out. And I thought that was so smart that he had done that. And it was true. And I mean, one older black lady, she thought for sure she was in good with him, but she went second to last. And she was pissed because he promised her final 2. Yes, he promised final 2 with everyone. With everyone. Even the girl who was going to go third to last, which the guy named. She was crying. She felt so betrayed. Even though the guy said at the very beginning, it's you, then you, then you, and it went just that way. But no one voted against him. Everyone thought, yeah, even though they saw him betraying his number 2, they saw how upset these people were, blindsided they were, and all of them smugly smiled, but not realizing they were next. I can't remember the name of the guy who figured it all out, but I mean, I was flabbergasted. My jaw was on the floor. I was like, wow, is he really going? And you think, well, Matt, that should be boring. It wasn't. It was so daggum entertaining to see everyone just get blindsided. Even though the guy at the very bottom, when there was 9, had told them the order. He figured out the order. But no one wanted to vote for him. And he voted for someone he hated, I think, or something. He didn't even vote for this Chris guy. And it was the most dominant that I've ever seen anyone in Survivor be. I mean, he had mind control over everyone. Everyone swore allegiance to him. Everyone tattled on him. When they said, so-and-so's trying to get this done. He's like, nope, that's not what I want. We want this person. Then I'll switch it out. I'll make them next, or something like that. But either way, no one could keep secrets because whoever they told, they always told him. And everyone thought he was their number 1 or number 2 to go with him all the way. Incredible. There was other good ones. When they brought people back, there was one guy called, I think his name was Sean, and he was really good, and he just didn't make it the whole way. But when they brought him back, I was so excited. But now, 3 years or 2 years later, the dude was out of shape. I mean, he got a little overweight, a little bit of a pot belly is what it was, and he just played like a moron. And I was like, what happened to this guy? He looked like a doofus. He was so smart in his first season. There was one season in South Africa where they had these 2, I guess, rugby players, or no, one big soccer player and one big rugby player from South Africa who were stars. I'd never heard of them, but they were stars in South Africa, and they were legends. Well, what they did, they were the coaches. You couldn't vote them off, and they couldn't vote in council, but they were on the teams, and they counseled the teams. And then the 2 leaders would square off in individual battles to give one of their teams an advantage every once in a while. And then as the groups merged, they walked. No, they stood back and watched. From a distance. They still didn't cast a vote. That was an interesting idea. They only did it one season, and I'm glad because I thought it was neat. They each had a coach that could never get voted off. That they ate and slept, starved and slept with the team. But they tried to pump them up. They could talk to everyone and give their suggestions on who should get out. But they didn't have authority because they didn't have a vote. And sometimes they'd be upset with their team because they took out one of their strongest people. And they're like, oh, man, because some people like their strong people. One of them stopped and he realized both of them wanted strong. They both leaders believed that strength was the way to win, And it is when you're playing a game like this. You want strength. But one of them quickly realized he just wanted one of his team members to win. And if they're crafty, sneaky, like the Sean guy, this is the first time the Sean guy played, he was hoping he would go all the way. And the guy made it to, I think, top 3, top 4, and then got voted out, which I knew the moment he lost the challenge. He thought he was going to be okay, but his buddy, turned on him and voted him out, which everyone knew his buddy wasn't faithful, but he thought his buddy was. So he made he got blindsided by one mistake. And when he came back, he was just clueless. He stayed a long time. I think he went to jury the second time too, but I mean, it was by accident. He was left out of every vote. He didn't know what was going on. Every time he tried to get back power, he had none. No one really took him serious. It was just kind of wild after the great season he played. But yeah, South Africa, really solid. Sadly, 2 years ago was his last season. They stopped doing it. When I watched Survivor South Africa, the newest season come out, and last season happened to be their last season. It supposedly didn't do good. The last season didn't do good in the rankings. They moved it up an early spot, which was up against a really popular show, and so it hurt in their numbers, and so they never brought it back, which was sad because it was good. It was definitely, I was excited about the next South African Survivor. I thought it was really, and whenever they spoke whatever their second language is, it would add subtitles too if it wasn't English. All of these are English speaking. You can understand them all. But whenever they spoke, I don't know what it was, Swahili or whatnot, they would translate it. And I was really happy about that because I know what they were saying sometimes. But really good show. So strong number 3 there. Number 2 is U.S. Survivor. That's right, folks. That's right. I do not believe U.S. Survivor is the best anymore. At one time, yes, it would have been the best. Back in the old days, definitely. The first 20 seasons, so stinking good. The next 20 seasons, it started waffling, but not when you think it would. Not when you think it would. Because Survivor, a bunch of my friends at work, I know people stopped watching after a while, and the show, kind of lost a few people over time. It got less and less popular. It wasn't the most watched TV show. But back in the day, reality show wasn't a thing back then. How I got into Survivor, really interesting story real quick. My buddy Bart. I'd known about the show, but I wasn't going to watch it. And my buddy Bart was excited to watch it, and so he came over to my parents' house, and we watched it that night. And then we started taking turns watching it at each other's house. It became a cult phenomenon on TV. And the next season, we would take turns hosting parties and cook rice, just rice, and eat rice, which I thought was great. In fact, sometimes I still eat rice with butter or rice with salt. We did rice with butter, salt in it, but to kind of flavor it up. But we would eat rice, and it just reminds me of those good days. Now, after season 2, we didn't watch it much together. I know he dropped off kind of early, but I still watched it. There's a lot of good seasons, but the time that it floundered, I mean, it had its ups and downs, but the one, oh gosh, when was it? I can't remember. Was it Game Changers? Yeah. It was Game Changers. Game Changers, I believe, let me make sure if I'm right about this. That was the one that everyone came back. Yeah. This one was... this is the one that kind of pissed a lot of people off, and all my friends from work stopped watching. I'll be honest, I almost stopped watching. I thought Game 34 was really bad, and then they had some okay ones, and it floundered around here and there. Island of the Idols, where Rob and Sandra come back, but they don't do anything. That was okay, but the Winners at War 40 was the last good one. The last good one, and it kind of, I don't know, it just, that of course that was all the winners there, and after that, the last 6 seasons, including this one, have been terrible, just terrible. There have been okay characters here and there, somewhat, maybe like a handful that I was interested in. Not this season. This season I'm totally out of it. But man, oh man, it's so sad how far this show has fallen. I know in 50 they're talking about bringing back players, but I am not as near excited as I used to be for Survivor back in the day. So it seems like after 40 they just hit a drought, and even the new players they have are just not that interesting. Like I said, you'll have maybe 1 or 2, just a handful, and that's it. Where my number 1, as you know, Survivor Australia, has memorable ones I mean, most of their cast, they have a bigger cast. They have a longer season. I think it goes 47 days or something. And the thing is, though, it doesn't feel like it drags on. They have hour and a half. They've been having hour and a half episodes, and it's packed full of action. And all of the characters just about are very well defined in all of them. Now, the first two seasons were regular, 2000, 2001. They're okay. They're not that good. Maybe the first three seasons, I can't remember, are okay. But when you get to the new rebooted type, and the guy's name is Jonathan. By the way, for South Africa, it was Niku. Niku I loved. He was really good. But Jonathan is one of my favorites. He's so funny. He'll eat some of the reward with them, just as a joke, or he'll drink a beer while they're drinking a beer. He'll drink one of their beers. Someone offered him the beer. He's like, I'll drink it. So he drank the beer. They do a lot of the old school versions of the stuff. They still do the auction, and they do it smart, meaning winning an auction, you don't know when you're bidding for a hidden immunity idol clue because they hide it in the goods. Like there was a big bowl of popcorn. Someone bought it, was eating the popcorn, and then found a clue to the hidden immunity idol. That's how they should do the auction. Just do a bunch of food, and on maybe one of the weaker ones, that's where you put the hidden clue in there. While everyone else they said they stopped doing it because too many players were waiting for an advantage in the game. Well, never do an advantage. Just do food rewards and see who, gets this food reward or something that's not as good but has an advantage in it. I love that idea. But Australian Survivor is full of unique designs on, the little challenges and whatnot. They have a billion interesting characters from King George to the Golden God himself, David, to Crazy Luke, to the Joker. All these characters. Russ Hands returned for one season, and he was good while he was there. He didn't stay that long. And then Sandra Diaz came back for a little while. It was fun to see her, but she was basically just moving along. She didn't really do much in it. I think she was just old and tired. But the thing is, though, the show delivers great episodes. In fact, the latest season I just watched, and they do different edits too. Which is so good. One of the edits they did, and I can't ruin this, but they show the vote. They show the confessional before they go next time on Survivor, and then usually they show the confessional at the end as the credits are rolling. Well, this time they wanted to show the confessional. The credits aren't rolling. The show isn't over. It needs to go to commercial break before you go back and say next time on Survivor. And I'm like, what are they doing? And he's talking because he thinks he knows who. The vote was a tie. And then they went back to vote again, and someone flipped. Well, he's positive, and you as the viewer are positive one of these two old ladies flipped because they felt so bad about betraying so-and-so. And he's saying it's all right. I don't know which one of it was. I think it was Patty or whatnot. And he goes, but I'm not mad at them. I knew they felt really bad against betraying so-and-so. And then at the end, you see that both old ladies, they voted with him. And the guy that voted against him was a guy who had been plotting his revenge since earlier on in the series. He said one day, he didn't know when, he was going to get revenge on his buddy getting voted out. And when he saw the tie and who the two people he had to vote for was, one was the guy instrumental in voting his buddy out, and you'd totally forgotten about that. And the guy just smiles, and you're thinking, why did he change his vote? He went, this one's for winner. And that's his little buddy that got voted out earlier on in the season. You're like, oh my gosh. And that's how the show ended. And then they did the commercial break, and then next time on Survivor. Brilliant. Blew my mind to pieces. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fan-friggin-tastic. Fan-friggin-tastic. Australian Survivor. Watch it. I know a lot of these seasons now come on YouTube now. I don't know if they're on Paramount Plus. I know for a short time they were. But folks, get them. Get them. Watch them. It is what Survivor used to be. It used to be super fun. It used to be fantastic. And this is the one. This is the one that is my favorite right now. In fact, after binge watching one of the seasons of the last season of Australian Survivor, in 1 week, I went back to watch U.S. Survivor and was bored out of my skull. I miss Australian Survivor. I love Australian Survivor. That is my firm number one. There you have it. Folks, let me know. Do you watch Survivor? Do you care anymore? What are your favorite Survivors? Have you seen any of these ones overseas? What do you think about those? Or were you bored with this topic? I'm not, because I love Survivor, but that's just me. And I've got some really fun ones on my notes here. for future episodes by myself since Mikey is still MIA, but that's fine. Folks, I'll see you next time on Saturday morning Samoflange. I'm on Jeopardy or something. Why'd I end it with a question?